What is up, everybody? It is the Georgia Show. I'm Jake Rowe. He's Rusty Mansell. We're from Dogs HQ. We've talked about this game one time, but Georgia beat down Clemson 34-3, and we got to talk about it a second time because there's some things you see a day later, some different feelings, some developed feelings you may have about the game. We got a lot to get to. I'm sitting here looking at this board of stuff that we want to hit on in this show, Rusty, and it's long, and I'm ready to get on it. But before we do, I assume you've had a chance to at least kind of gloss back through the game. Anything catch your eye?
Nothing that, to be honest with you, kind of made note like that surprised me. I think the amount of freshman snaps kind of surprised me a little bit. Saw the snap story that you guys did. I think that looking back on it, they were really close to getting some sacks, and that's a good thing. They were almost there. One of the big plays, chunk plays that Clemson had in the second half, Smile Monday was right there, and he got stepped on by an offensive lineman's foot, tripped him up, so he was dialed in. So, we talked about those things. I really think that what we kind of saw instant reaction was kind of what the tape showed when I looked at it again today. I watched all of the second half offensive possessions, and I went back and fast forwarded and did real quick against Clemson's offensive possession so I could watch them back to back to back that way, and just really felt like Georgia's depth. Georgia took that game over. Obviously, some adjustments at halftime, and they had Clemson. They had their quarterback. He was, I'm not trying to be the Clemson expert, but he looked pretty hesitant in that second half. Like he wasn't sure of himself, and Georgia hadn't dialed in on him.
Tell you what, Rusty, I look back to our reporting in the preseason, and something that, I don't know, man, it's kind of like a Captain Obvious deal if you think about it. Like, hey, that Georgia reporter over there just reported that Georgia's big and fast, but that was one of the things I talked to some people that get to see a little bit of practice kind of year in and year out, Rusty. And one of the things that we reported weeks and weeks and weeks ago was, guys, I just keep hearing that this team really does stand out in terms of its speed and its athleticism. Like, it's a really athletic defense and offense. And Rusty, I especially saw it on defense yesterday, man. When I went back and I watched this game, I think to kind of give you a perspective of what it's like in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, it's kind of the press box is in the corner. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of be on the side corner, which is, a little bit better. You can kind of be in the end, which is kind of unique because I feel like you really get to see the speed of the game. You kind of get to see lateral speed better. It's very rare on defense that you see you get to see guys run downhill a lot and close on guys. There's some kind of lateral speed to it. And man, I thought in real time, Georgia looked fast, and I was really interested to see if that played through on the television copy. And it did. Like, it showed up just as well on there. And I just saw some speed stuff. And listen, I mean, it's a deep team. It's a young team in some spots, but even the offensive side I thought was, showed some real speed and some real athleticism too. So I just think this is probably one of Kirby's more top to bottom athletic teams. And after watching it in person and then kind of seeing that same thing on the TV copy and reviewing the game.
Size and speed. That's something Georgia covets, and not everybody looks like Georgia. Very few teams look like Georgia in person. Ohio State looks like Georgia. Texas looks like Georgia. Alabama looks like Georgia. I think Ole Miss is trying to look like Georgia, and Lane Kiffin was very, very vocal about that in the offseason. He said, after I saw Georgia in person last year and what they did to us, we got to get bigger. So they went the portal trying to get that way. So I just think, I've said this many times on here. I think when people see Georgia up close, whether it be a recruiting visit or they get a chance to see practice or they get a chance to see Georgia in person and they go down to the hedges and see them, it's not a group of humans that look like that, man. 1 through 85. They're fast, man. Their DBs are so fast. I remember a couple of weeks ago, they had the Letterman there. And these are guys that all played at Georgia at different times. And, one of my good friends, he DM'd me or texted me after the practice. He goes, Rusty, our DBs are so big. I've never seen anything like that. Like, those guys are so long and they're so big. He doesn't keep up with day-to-day recruiting. And I said, yeah, man. And those guys all run like 10.5, 10.600s. So you throw that in. But, yeah, man, speed, size, Georgia, obviously, just really sometimes they even remind me like, hey, we're damn special. And defensively, you and I talked about it last night. And we talked about it today. From the front back, from the linebackers back to the secondary, this might be the fastest group they've had. Now, I don't, time will tell it'll be the most talented group, but you start talking about those inside backers and you go backwards, that back end, this might be the longest and fastest group they've had. They're not as talented up front as they've been before. But if you want to talk about from that linebacker group back, I mean, they can freaking fly, man. And they are big dudes.
Yeah, Rusty, and I'm going to say this too. I think they're playing, and this is something I can't wait to get to on Dogs HQ Plus. I hadn't even told you about this, but I'm going to try something on Dogs HQ Plus tomorrow night to show something that I saw out of Georgia that looks so different because they're different up front, right? I mean, Georgia played that game with 3 true interior defensive linemen for 3 plays, and then they did it with 2 true interior defensive linemen for the rest of the way. And some guys played some high numbers of snaps, and they held up well. I think Georgia's done a good job of getting those guys in shape, Rusty. But they did some things different, too, just in terms of how they use different 270, 280-pound pieces as opposed to 300-pounders. And, hopefully I'm working on some ways to get that on Dogs HQ Plus tomorrow night. So we might be able to, look at some stuff together and kind of talk a little ball doing that. So I'm excited about it. Yeah. But another thing, man, I tell you what, we were talking about getting a look at this team in person. There are folks around here and listening to this show who can get a look at this team in person, and they can do it through gametime.co. Listen, we have been partners with Game Time for a long time. These guys have been good to us. They were good to us all the last football season. And as you can see, this is one of the coolest, most easy to use apps I have ever seen in my life. I don't even know what game that's the Georgia game. What do they got the diamonds in the end zone for? I just noticed that. It threw me off. All right, so here we go. This is an interactive map. You see all these different ticket deals. You can be up here in the upper level for the 300s for about $90 right now. You can pay a lot more than that. You can pay less than that. It says the lowest ticket right now is $47. I think that's going to put you up here in the 600 level. But you can see in a lot of different places there at gametime.co. Listen, they specialize in these last-minute ticket deals, y'all. Like, you find some phenomenal ticket deals at Game Time at the last minute. The map is interactive. It's fun, and it's smooth. Like, it's not catchy. It's not going to freeze up on any screen. And you need to get involved with Game Time now, because if you use the promo code DAWGS, DAWGS, and that may be the wrong promo code. It may be actually On3 this time. If you use the promo code On3, you will get $20 off of your first order from this. You download the app, you use that promo code, and you get 20%. You get $20 off of your first order. Terms apply there. I think it has to be a certain amount, but go check into that, download it, check out Game Time. We love them. Their ticket deals are great. Their last minute ticket deals are even better, and we appreciate them for partnering with the show. All right, so Rusty, moving on. We've talked a little bit about this Georgia defense, but I'm interested to know from you, was there anything that kind of, as you look back through it, was there anything that kind of stood out to you, that any particular player or anybody that kind of you're like, all right, that's a different cat than we saw last year?
Man, it's hard to, I don't know, Jake. I mean, some of these guys, younger guys, we don't know. I mean, there's so many returning guys that play, like what I always use that term, meaningful minutes. They returned so many of those guys. I think, I got a lot of texts last night about Raylan Wilson, and that was the guy that, in that signing class that I thought was the dude, and I still think he is. I still think Raylan Wilson may have the highest ceiling of anybody in that room, come draft time. He kind of flashed yesterday, and he started, playing fast, and he's such a physical, he hits, man. He'll strike you. And I think people got a kind of an introduction to Raylan Wilson, and you kind of take that Jamon Dumas-Johnson last year, Smile Munden. They started mixing in C.J. Allen. Raylan Wilson got hurt, so he was out for a while. And you kind of, you get hurt at Georgia, you kind of go down for a little bit. And people want to talk about that Alabama game, and he got picked. He was a freshman, and they went after him on that play, and it is what it is for that touchdown. But you look at Raylan Wilson, and I just really think that, C.J. Allen's a given. You know what you're going to get there. You know what kind of player he is. He's very consistent. He is a damn good football player. You look at Raylan Wilson, I think people understand yesterday why I've been so high on him since high school and why I am still extremely high on number 5. I mean, I told you this yesterday. Those guys made Smile Munden kind of not saying afterthought. You just didn't talk about him much, but Smile Munden played his what off. He played a great game. In fact, I was trading some texts with our good friend Matt Godwin today, and Matt knows that roster just as good as anybody. And he was like, "Man, that might have been the most physical game I've ever seen out of Smile. I mean, he's striking guards, he's taking on blocks. Everybody in that room is better because that whole room is absolutely loaded." So, I just think that I think it's a really good opportunity to see number 5, and I think that was a guy that kind of reintroduced himself to not only me but the Georgia fan base.
Tell you what, man, between 5 and 11, I thought they made 2 and 3 kind of look a little slower than the rest of. They just played so fast and so well. And that's not a knock on 2 and 3, because I know for a fact both of those guys are Sunday football players and potential first-round players. But I couldn't agree more with you. And honestly, I don't know that the guys coming behind them aren't going to be just as good. Palmer and I were blown away watching Chris Cole and Justin Williams kind of come out and do pregame, because it's like they're a couple inches taller than those guys and they're longer. And
how good does Chris Cole look? Like Chris Cole? He looks like Quay Walker, doesn't he? Does he look like Quay Walker?
Just wait until you can get a single-digit jersey on one of those guys. They're wearing 18 and 19 right now. Yeah. I mean, come on. How good can they look as linebackers? Shit. What are they doing?
I tell you what, man. Chris Cole, when I saw him first, I was like,
we need to get 42 on one of them, Rusty. We've lost that.
50, used to be 54. You're like 55. Yeah. Put a big double nickel on that backer, but those guys don't play that anymore. But, man, Justin Williams, he's a dude, great kid. Made a great play yesterday. Chris Cole, I'm just telling you, man, those dudes.
They're so high on those guys. And because Zayden Walker coming in, behind that, and we'll get to recruiting later, but you're trying to just keep Glenn Schumann just kind of like taking them all, like, hey, y'all, come on, just come be a part of this. And man, he's got such a talented group. I feel like that group, Rusty, is going to be so much more impactful just in terms of like big plays. And that was one thing Georgia got in 2022 is, they didn't have the solid, no mistakes type stuff that Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker and Channing Tindall did, but they made a lot of plays. Like Jamon Dumas-Johnson, for all of kind of his shortcomings and kind of weight getting up, weight getting down, maybe not being as fast as he wanted to be, made a ton of plays behind the line of scrimmage.
Oh yeah,
player, sacks, finished at the ball carrier in the backfield, stuff like that. Smile Munden did the same thing in 2022, and I really felt like that was missing from that position last year, in addition to some of just kind of the every down, dirty work that group did. And I got really high expectations for how good they're going to be, because every fan out there, Rusty, they'll look at the offseason and they'll be like, well, this guy's going to get better and this guy's going to get better. And so a lot of times it doesn't work out that way. This guy may get better, or he might get a little dinged up and get farther behind, and you think, you were just wrong about him when, he's got something going on. There's so many different things. But when I look at number 5, Raylan Wilson, when I look at number 11, Jalen Carter, both of them did exactly what you thought and wanted them to do from last year to this year. And I could not have picked a better 2 guys to kind of highlight as far as, them being better football players. And another guy I'll point out too, Ty Ingram Dawkins. He played 38 snaps yesterday. Wow. That is a lot of snaps in the trenches. Mm-hmm. And Ty Ingram Dawkins at probably 6'5", 280, 85 pounds maybe, played a ton of football snaps, and a lot of those snaps inside against guards and bigger dudes that he's normally lined up against.
I had a UGA staffer tell me the 6'5", 285-pound guys are the hardest to find in high school football. They can rush the passer and play down lineman. Said 100% that is the hardest position to find that body type. And you got to get those. And you see Georgia battling for those guys. Who was the guy they lost to Florida last year? Kid from Daytona Mainland. Yes, LJ McCray was like the dude. Like that guy was. Yeah. He was built 1,000% on what they were trying to do at that position. I mean, there's only like 4 or 5 per class, and they've done a really good job. Michael Williams is one of those guys too. It was in that kind of realm. He stays a little bit under that on his weight, but that's the type of player that's just so hard to find. You either find that 6'4", 225-pound guy that you put on the edge, but they're looking for that 6'5", 280-pound guy that can play 5 technique, set the edge, and rush the passer. Those are just hard to find, and that's why the NFL covets those guys so much. Had a couple questions. I think our guy Evan Grimes there talked about using Game Time. I don't know if you highlighted that, but we've had a couple people in here mention Game Time, and we normally don't want to double back on sponsors, but we do appreciate that, and we do appreciate the feedback from people that had used that before, because they're big sponsors of everything for On 3, but they're definitely big sponsors for the Georgia show. So appreciate the comments there, Evan, and appreciate any feedback, because that's a big deal, and as Georgia wins more games, and you look at this home schedule next year, people ask me and Jake all the time, how can we get tickets? And to answer it fairly, there aren't any tickets, so there's where you can get them.
Yeah, you can get them there when they go there. But, I mean, Rusty, Georgia has kind of made a living trying to finding unicorn-like football players that can just do a lot of different stuff. The Jalen Walkers and Trayvon Walkers and Michael Williams, Malachi Starks, the game he played at Star. You talk about Matt Godwin. I shared text with Matt yesterday or earlier today, and I said, I think – so Pro Football Focus has Malachi Starks at, I believe it was 36 or 38 snaps at Star on Saturday. Ja'Cory Thomas had 19. All right. I think those may have been the best 38 snaps that have ever been played at Star at Georgia. That was, to me, I thought Malachi Starks played that position, and I don't know if it's long-term and all this stuff. Janelle Aguero's got a muscle pull, and I believe when he comes back, he's going to be playing a lot. But Malachi Starks played that position at an extremely high level. It was the first, 38 snaps of his career at that position, and he crushed it.
You say he played better than – remember they put Leonard Floyd at Star against Clemson in 2012?
Leonard Floyd, Lorenzo Carter.
Adam Anderson played some Star.
Lorenzo Carter played Star a good portion of that 2017 season. He spent a lot of time at Star against Notre Dame at Notre Dame.
I forgot about it. So Georgia's Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart and kind of the consistent guys there. They'll bring out a wrinkle for a whole week now. The Missouri game last year, we interviewed Julian Humphrey with that deal, and he just said, look, that was the game where they just came to me on Monday and said, we're going to play basketball. We're going 3-on-3 against Missouri's guys. We want y'all 3 against those 3. And that was the first week that Georgia had ever shown that. So they'll definitely try to get their best athletes on the field and any kind of matchup advantage they can get. I forgot about Lorenzo Carter doing that. That's crazy.
Yeah, he played it a ton. I think he probably played it more than any other player, I would say. Sure, I think that he probably played it more than anybody else. But and I thought he did a really good job at it too. Rusty, let's go over this thing right here with Carson Beck here real quick, because I have seen a lot of chatter kind of about this guy. Hey, I get it, right? You got a quarterback coming back. You believe what is it, 5th-year junior? Or something like that. I mean, he's been there for a while, right? Yep. And Carson, he showed you last year after starting slow early in the season that he could start fast and that he could kind of be that guy. And here we are at the first of the season again. Listen, I don't know about the plan. I don't know anything about how good or bad Mike Bobo's plan is because I didn't see it. I do know that Mike Bobo is also responsible for that offense executing and for having the quarterback ready to play and play well and all that stuff too. So, any criticism of Carson Beck is criticism of Mike Bobo, in my opinion. I'm not protecting the guy. But I think that Georgia's quarterback played really bad.
Fire them all.
I think he played really bad in the first half Saturday. I just don't think Carson played very well. And I think that the comments on television, my dad told me about this on the way home. I talked to him on the way home from the game, and he told me about the broadcast. And I don't know if you were listening to it when Dominic Lovett came over to Carson Beck, and he said, hey, after he missed him on that dig route that would have gone for a touchdown, he said, hey, what can I do to help you out? Like, what can I do to that? And he said, nothing, man. That's on me. I need to calm down. And that accountability I thought was really important and really kind of just made me laugh off a very so-so to bad first half for Carson Beck, where he missed some stuff that he really shouldn't be missing.
So let me give you the other side of this with Carson Beck. So probably one, if not two, the biggest decision in the offseason of college football was where Carson Beck was coming back or not. He goes through the whole deal. He's coming back. The entire offseason, Carson Beck is, that's a big deal. He has signed major endorsement deals. He has a massive, I would say, girl he is dating with a massive amount of social following that brings a lot of eyes on him. He's already been labeled or kind of notified, kind of projected. He has a chance to be the number one overall draft pick. Sooner than later, Georgia is going to release a Heisman campaign that is a massive, massive campaign. And they've got a lot of stuff in the works for this. I talked with someone in that building. When they release all that and what they're going to do for him, he knows this. They opened up with Clemson. Everybody in the country is watching this noon game. He knows that. He knows he wants to play well. He knows he wants to be that guy. There was a lot going into that for Carson Beck to be perfect. And he's human. I can sense that he was freaking amped up, man. You could see it. Some of the balls kind of juiced a little bit on him where I just think that he kind of had a little bit of happy feet, even though he had a great run on there. I think he got to halftime. And I don't think Mike Bobo just absolutely changed the world at halftime with him. I think he settled down, and I think he's like, okay, let me take this thing over and let me get this thing going, because he's human now. Now he has to start fast, but there's been a lot leading up into that game, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt of what he faced yesterday in that first half. He's had a lot on him, man. He's been everywhere. I know somebody interviewed him last week, and they told me that Carson told them he had done 100 hours of media taping in the preseason for interviews and for stuff that Georgia's going to run, stuff that ESPN's going to run, stuff that you hadn't even seen yet. So understand kind of where he was, and I'll give him a mulligan, so to speak, in that first half yesterday, because he got dialed in the second half. He made a throw to Dylan Bell that Avion Terrell was all over the coverage. You cannot defend the throw he made to Dylan Bell on that little in route. So, yes, he didn't play great. I agree 1,000%, but you also got to see a little bit of what led into yesterday. And I think that now that he's in rhythm, I think Carson Beck's his best days are ahead of him still at Georgia.
Absolutely. This Cali Visions said, don't forget Walter Grant, also a star. He also played star some. He also worked out a little bit. All right, Rusty, let's get down to the nitty-gritty here with the recruiting. But before we do, we need to talk about my man Andy Ludicky over at My Perfect Franchise. Are you a displaced corporate executive, or are you just wanting to diversify, put your career in your own hands? Well, MyPerfectFranchise.net is the place for you. All you got to do is give Andy a call. He can be a huge help to you, your dreams, your aspirations, and what you want to do as an entrepreneur. He's owned multiple franchises himself. He is a businessman. He has been through different areas, different genres, different spaces, and he has been highly successful with that. We've actually had just kind of give a little testimonial. We had some listeners here on Dogs HQ that we referred to Andy, and it has been one of the most successful franchises that he has dealt with over the past couple of years. And it's really cool to think about that, kind of being the middleman for a deal like that. But call Andy, put your life and your career in your own hands. And best of all, the services are free to you. You've got nothing to lose. Go to myperfectfranchise.net. It's right there at the bottom if you're watching this on YouTube, but it's myperfectfranchise.net if you're listening. And we appreciate Andy. So Rusty, we got this whole recruiting deal going on. Georgia has a bunch of kids in person that see them. It didn't turn anything out like that Miami, Florida did yesterday with the Miami players running up recruiting the Florida players before they leave. That was wild. But so Georgia definitely impressed those guys. Definitely put on a show for them. And the calendar flips to September, and here we are with a couple of guys on campus already on Sunday. So Labor Day weekend, man, getting fun.
What I'd say, better never rest. So
yeah, that's right.
I mean, let's be real about this. Georgia could not speak with those guys, could not have them on the sidelines. All they could do is go in the game, set into the area designated for recruits, was lower level. Both schools were able to host prospects. And listen, I don't have to sugarcoat it. The advertisement that Georgia put on yesterday, the recruit reaction that we have on Dogs HQ, you can read all of that. Everybody asked me, did Justice Terry, the 5-star from Manchester, make it? He did. Did Elijah Griffin, the 5-star from Savannah, make it? He did. Did Guyton, the 5-star 2027 defensive end, make it? He did. Did David Jacobs, who's going to be a 5-star in 2027 class? He did. Tyler Atkinson, who I think you want to talk about, if I'm Glenn Schumann, that's the one you can't miss. Like, you cannot miss Tyler Atkinson at Grayson. He is a absolute bona fide superstar. You want to save this piece for me? You save this one, because Tyler Atkinson is good as an inside linebacker as I've ever covered in Georgia. I mean, this dude is an absolute – I mean, he can rush. He can do everything. He is explosive. And the more I get to know him and how he is wired, love me some Tyler Atkinson. He was there yesterday. He's a 2026 inside backer at Grayson. So we got a lot of recruit reaction to that. We also listed today two out-of-state prospects that are on campus today. They were there yesterday. They spent the night in Atlanta, and they come over to Athens this morning. Todd Hartley reposted a social media post from one of their parents, and they were inside the stadium this morning, like at 11 a.m. So the better never rest there for Georgia. But listen, nothing Georgia did yesterday hurt themselves as far as a product. And I think you'll see some of those comments that Steve Wilfong, Jake Roos, Jeremy Johnson, all of our guys got in recruit reaction. So Georgia will host their first home game this year. I'll go ahead and say that. We'll have a visitor list up, and it'll probably be better than you think, because it's a 2:00 start and it gives players time to get there. We will have a lot of the younger guys there. But Georgia's going to go on the road. They're going to be at Kentucky. Then they're going to have a bye week, and then they're going to be at Alabama. But if you start fast forward to October the 5th and then October the 12th, they're going to have 2 back-to-back SEC games. And minimum, one of them is going to be a night game, just the way things fold now. One of those 2 is going to be a night game, I would be willing to bet. So you're going to have 2 weekends, I think, of a really, really strong recruiting list too. So a lot going on there, and we'll have it all covered on Dogs HQ.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. I really can't wait until the visit season picks up. We start getting some of those fall-like football games. I mean, Rusty's supposed to be in the 70s later this week, high 83 on Saturday for that 2:00 kickoff.
It's hoodie season.
Oh, man, I can't wait. You know I love hoodie season. I wear them all summer long. I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me. I gotta get you some new ones. I get you some new MVP camp stuff. Yeah, I got holes worn today, MVP camp hoodie. I kind of wear it every day. But yeah, I mean, listen, it's going to be fun, man. I mean, this fall is going to be a lot of fun. Georgia got it kicked off right. I'm always Rusty. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, I went to Georgia, grew up a Georgia fan. I've always got a little bit of nervousness at the beginning of the season because you just don't know what the team's going to look like. And I just keep going back, Rusty, to seeing that football team on Saturday. missing pieces all over the place, and Trevor Etienne suspended, and this guy goes down, and that guy goes down, and that guy goes down. And you start looking at the top 10 players on the roster of guys you can't have go down, and like 3 or 4 of them go down, and Georgia just keeps gaining a firmer control of that football game as all of that was going on. It's just a well-oiled machine, man. It's just really built the right way, and Georgia has done a phenomenal job of building that roster, and that's just the way it is, and I'm really excited to see how this season's going to pan out. I think it's going to be a long one, man. I think it's going to be a long. I don't know if 14, 15 games is going to do it this year. I think it's going to take a little more than that.
Whew. Well, we'll text about the travel budget.
Hey, we appreciate it. Listen, Dogs HQ Plus coming up first thing
Tuesday. Let me answer this. Let me answer this question right here. There's a lot of talk here about wide receivers. Let me get off. Let me give you 2 minutes on wide receivers, and everybody's about to watch this LSU USC game. Georgia is recruiting the piss out of wide receivers now. Let me just say this. They're recruiting offensive linemen. They're recruiting defensive linemen. They're recruiting wide receivers. There is a market right now at wide receiver that's out of this world for NIL. Like, it's insane what's going on there. So Georgia is heavily recruiting some wide receivers, and they got a kid named Talon Taylor. If you have not watched Talon Taylor, you're not doing your homework. You're talking about a kid that Ohio State was begging to not commit to Georgia. Do not commit to Georgia. We want you. Kid out of Illinois. Go watch his tape. All right. Georgia's missed on a couple of kids, and it's not over with. They're not quit recruiting CJ Wiley. So there's areas to where Kirby Smart's made some decisions, how his team is going to be built. So, a lot of schools hire general managers. Georgia's got some guys in place. You have to make decisions. You don't have unlimited funds. You can't go out. You're not getting a Jermaine Smith. You're not getting that guy. I mean, Jeremiah Smith. I mean, that guy got into one of the biggest bidding wars you've ever seen. And good kudos to him. But you got to take your money you have available and decide how you're going to use it. So there's a lot that goes into it. I don't think Georgia not having 1,000-yard receiver since Terrence Edwards is really killing them as much as you think. So Georgia is really competitive, and they really get into the wide receiver market, and they want to get some guys. There's some people outside of Georgia that I talk to that say that the wide receiver and running back market is going to be 80% portal in the next 2 years. Like, you can get 2 wide receivers, but you're going to get 3 portal guys. So, that's where Georgia's done their hate. They went into the portal for some wide receivers. So I want to kind of answer the question and say Georgia is definitely trying to recruit at a high level wide receiver, but that wide receiver market has got insane too. So it's going to be interesting how they finish this class off, how they've done. They've done really good with some guys that they've gotten the last couple classes. They go out and get London Humphreys in the portal. Kobe Young scored a touchdown yesterday. London Humphrey scored a touchdown yesterday. So let's just kind of pace yourself a little bit about wide receivers. That has nothing right now to say with anybody on that staff and how they're recruiting. Because I can tell you the assistant coaches that are in charge of that side are all over wide receivers. What matters is when they sit down in that room and say, hey, what's it going to take to get one of those? And that's where there's a little bit of disconnect. There's a lot of teams that will not go head-to-head with Georgia on offensive lineman and defensive lineman either, because that's where Georgia's putting a little bit of their hay too. So without getting too deep, I want to kind of answer that right there and kind of let everybody know what's going on with those things. So don't worry about Georgia as far as recruiting. They're not losing battles based off relationships and resume. Some of those battles they're never going to win. So just be confident and have some faith in some of these guys, and we'll see how they end up. And these are big boy decisions, man. They get paid millions of dollars to make these type of decisions, especially Kirby Smart. So we'll see how this thing ends up, Jake.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got a feeling we'll be getting into some of this on Dogs HQ Plus Tuesday morning. We start talking about recruiting. We'll maybe do a little film stuff on Dogs HQ Plus. Going to do a lot of discussion. Make sure you're there Tuesday morning. We'll be doing Bark After Dark tomorrow night. We'll be back with you here with the next Georgia show on Thursday morning at around 9:30 a.m. But for this one, that's all we got. Y'all have a terrific week.